You leave the event, and the first thing you feel is relief. Not joy, not connection, not the warmth people say you're supposed to feel after spending time with others. Just relief that it's over. You get in the car or you walk home, and a silence feels like the first real breath you've taken all night. And you wonder if something is wrong with you, because it seems like everyone else is still energized, still laughing, still making plans for next time. But you're already counting the days until you can be alone again. It's not that the people were bad. It's not that you didn't try. You showed up, you smiled, you asked the right questions, you laughed at the right moments, you did everything you were supposed to do. But the whole time, there was this quiet hum of exhaustion building in the background. And now that you're alone, it's not just tiredness, it's something heavier, like you've been holding your breath underwater and you finally surfaced. People don't understand this. They think if you're drained, it means the event was bad or the people were annoying. But that's not it. You can be around people you genuinely like and still feel completely emptied by the end of it. It's not about them. It's about the act itself, the performance, the constant monitoring of how you're being perceived, how you're coming across, whether you're saying the right thing or standing in the right place or laughing too much or not enough. You're not antisocial. You're not broken. You're just aware of how much energy it takes to exist in a room full of people who are all performing their own version of being okay. And most of the time, you don't have that energy to spare. So you spend it anyway, because that's what you're supposed to do, and then you come home and feel like you've been hollowed out. The worst part is the small talk, the surface-level exchanges that everyone treats like connection. Someone asks how you've been, and they don't actually want to know. They want you to say fine, to keep it light, to move on quickly. And you do. You give them what they expect, but inside you're aware of how far away you feel from anything real. And that distance is exhausting in a way that's hard to explain. You start to notice how much of your energy goes into reading the room, watching for cues, adjusting your tone, figuring out when to speak and when to stay quiet. It's like there's a part of your brain that never stops analyzing, never stops trying to make sure you're doing it right. And after a few hours of that, you're not just tired, you're depleted, like someone drained your battery without asking. And then people say things like, you just need to get out more, or you'll feel better once you're there, as if the problem is that you're not trying hard enough, as if forcing yourself into more situations will somehow make you enjoy them. But it doesn't work that way. You've tried. You've gone to the events, joined the groups, said yes when you wanted to say no, and every time you end up in the same place, alone, exhausted, wondering why something that's supposed to feel good leaves you feeling worse. It's not that you hate people. You don't. You can appreciate them from a distance. You can care about them, think about them, wish them well. But being around them, especially in groups, especially for extended periods, costs you something that takes days to recover. And most people don't get that. They think you're being difficult or distant or cold, but you're not. You're just protecting the little bit of energy you have left. You start to realize that what drains you isn't the people themselves. It's the expectation, the unspoken rule that you have to be on, have to be engaged, have to be present in a way that feels anything but natural. You can't just exist. You have to perform existence. And after a while, that performance becomes unbearable. So you start saying no more often, not because you're rude, but because you've learned that your peace matters more than their expectations. You stop apologizing for needing space. You stop pretending that you're the same as everyone else, that you recharge the same way, that you need the same things. And some people don't like that. They take it personally. They think you're rejecting them. But you're not. You're just choosing yourself for once. There's a quiet kind of clarity that comes with this. You stop believing that something is wrong with you just because you're wired differently. You stop trying to force yourself into spaces that were never meant for you. You realize that the exhaustion you feel isn't a flaw, it's information. It's your system telling you that it needs something different. And for the first time, you start listening. You notice that the people who drain you the most are the ones who never stop talking, the ones who fill every silence with noise, who treat conversation like a performance, who never ask you a single real question. They talk at you, not with you. And you sit there, nodding, pretending to be engaged, while inside you're counting the minutes until you can leave. And when you finally do leave, you feel lighter, not because they were bad people, but because you were never really there in the first place. You start to understand that you don't actually dislike socializing. You dislike shallow socializing. You dislike interactions that require you to shrink yourself, to mold yourself into something easier for other people to digest. You dislike the feeling of being surrounded by people and still feeling completely alone. And that's not the same as being antisocial. That's just being selective about where you put your energy. The people who don't drain you are rare. They're the ones who don't need you to perform, the ones who are okay with silence, the ones who ask you real questions and actually wait for real answers, the ones who don't take it personally when you need space. Those people exist, but they're not everywhere, and most social events aren't designed for that kind of connection. They're designed for volume, for noise, for the illusion of togetherness, and you're not built for illusions. You think about all the times you forced yourself to stay longer than you wanted to, all the times you said yes when everything in you was screaming no, all the times you walked away feeling worse than when you arrived, and you realize that you were never protecting anyone by doing that. You were just wearing yourself down. And for what? So people wouldn't think you were weird? So they wouldn't ask questions? So you could blend in? Blending in costs too much. It costs your energy, your peace, your sense of self. And after a while, you realize it's not worth it. You'd rather be alone and intact than surrounded and depleted. And that's not sad. That's just honest. You stop thinking of solitude as something you're retreating to. You start thinking of it as something you're choosing. A place where you don't have to explain yourself, where you don't have to be anything other than what you already are, where the noise stops and you can finally hear yourself think. And that's not loneliness, that's relief. The real reason you feel drained after social events isn't because you're broken, it's because you're giving more than you're receiving. You're spending energy on interactions that don't refill you. You're performing a version of yourself that isn't sustainable. And your body knows it, your mind knows it. That exhaustion is just the truth catching up with you. And maybe the answer isn't to push through it. Maybe it's to stop pretending it's not there, to stop treating your need for space like a flaw that needs fixing, to trust that the way you're wired isn't wrong, it's just different. And different doesn't need to be corrected, it just needs to be understood. You're not too much, you're not too little. You're not too sensitive or too distant or too anything. You're just someone who feels the weight of things that other people don't notice. And that weight is real. It's not in your head. It's not something you can think your way out of. It's something you have to honor. So when you leave the next event and feel that familiar heaviness, don't fight it. Don't tell yourself you should have stayed longer or tried harder or been different. Just acknowledge it. This is what it costs. And now you know. And knowing means you get to decide what's worth it and what's not. You don't owe anyone your energy. You don't owe anyone an explanation for why you need space. You don't owe anyone a version of yourself that's easier for them to understand. You just owe yourself the truth. And the truth is, you're not meant to thrive in every environment, and that's okay. The quiet you return to isn't emptiness. It's where you come back to yourself.